Welcome to Noma Nights.
On a gentle evening, when the sky faded into shades of lavender and pale gold, a small village rested quietly between rolling hills and whispering trees. The air was calm, carrying the faint scent of pine and distant rain. It was the kind of evening that made time feel slower, softer. In this village lived a boy named Ethan. Ethan was not the loudest, nor the bravest, nor the strongest boy in the village, but he had something rare. He noticed things others often missed. The way shadows stretched across the ground at sunset, the way leaves trembled even when there was no wind, the way silence sometimes felt like it was trying to speak. That evening, Ethan sat by his window, watching the last light of the sun disappear behind the hills. His room was dim, lit only by a small candle flickering beside his bed. Everything was still, almost too still. Then, something unusual happened. Far in the distance, beyond the hills, a small golden light appeared. It wasn't like a star. It wasn't like a lantern from the village. It moved. Slowly, gently, as if it were breathing. Ethan leaned closer to the window. The light flickered once, then again, and then it drifted slightly to the left, like it was inviting him, calling him, not with sound, but with presence. He felt no fear, only curiosity, and something else, something warm. Without thinking too much, Ethan stood up. He put on his soft wool coat, quietly opened his door, and stepped outside into the cool evening air. The village was asleep. Windows were dark, doors were closed. Even the usual sounds of night, crickets, distant animals, felt softer than usual. Ethan began walking toward the hills. Each step felt light, as if the ground itself was guiding him forward. The grass beneath his feet was cool and slightly damp, and the air grew fresher the farther he went. The golden light remained ahead of him, never too close, never too far, just enough to lead. As he climbed the first hill, he paused and looked back. The village looked small now, peaceful, almost like a dream he was slowly leaving behind. For a moment, he wondered if he should return, but then the light flickered again, soft, gentle, patient. Ethan smiled faintly. "Just a little further," he whispered, and so he continued. As he reached the top of the hill, the world beyond opened before him. A wide valley stretched out under the night sky, filled with silver mist that drifted like quiet waves. Tall trees stood scattered across the land, their branches swaying ever so slightly, as if they were breathing in harmony with the earth. And there, in the middle of the valley, the golden light hovered. But now, Ethan could see it more clearly. It wasn't just light, it was a lantern. An old, delicate lantern glowing with a soft golden flame inside. It floated just above the ground, moving slowly, almost as if it were alive. Ethan stepped closer, his footsteps barely making a sound. The lantern didn't move away this time. It stayed, waiting. He reached out his hand, not touching it, just close enough to feel its warmth. It wasn't hot, it was comforting, like the feeling of sitting beside a fire on a quiet night. "Are you leading me somewhere?" Ethan asked softly. Of course there was no answer, but the lantern flickered, once, twice, and then it began to move again. This time it drifted deeper into the valley. Ethan followed. As he walked through the mist, everything around him felt different. The world was quieter here, not empty, but peaceful. The trees seemed taller, the shadows softer. Even the air felt thicker, like it was holding stories within it. After a while, Ethan noticed something unusual. The ground beneath him began to glow faintly. Tiny lights appeared among the grass, soft blue and white sparkles, like fallen stars resting on the... He stopped and looked down. They pulsed gently, slowly, as if they were alive. Ethan knelt down, reaching toward one of the tiny lights. As his fingers came close, the light lifted slightly, floating just above his hand. It felt aware, not alive like a person, but not lifeless either. Ethan smiled. "Hello?" he whispered. The tiny light shimmered, then drifted upward, joining the others. Soon dozens of these small lights surrounded him, rising gently into the air like a quiet dance. Above him, the lantern glowed brighter. For the first time, Ethan felt something shift inside him. Not fear, not excitement, but a deep, peaceful understanding, as if he was exactly where he was meant to be. The lantern continued forward, and the tiny lights slowly followed along, forming a soft trail behind it. Ethan walked in the middle of this quiet procession, step by step, breath by breath. Time seemed to lose its meaning. Minutes felt like hours, or maybe hours felt like minutes. He couldn't tell, and strangely, he didn't mind. Eventually, the lantern slowed down. Ahead, there was something new. A small wooden bridge. It stretched over a narrow stream that shimmered, red faintly in the darkness. The water moved slowly, reflecting the soft lights around it like a mirror of the sky. The lantern hovered just above the bridge, waiting. Ethan stopped at the edge. For the first time since he left the village, he hesitated. Something about the bridge felt different, not dangerous, but important, like crossing it would change something. He looked at the water below. It was calm, almost perfectly still, and in its reflection, he saw himself, but not exactly as he was. The reflection looked older, calmer, as if it carried memories he didn't yet have. Ethan blinked. The image returned to normal, just his own face, soft and quiet under the dim light. He took a slow breath, then another, and gently, he placed his foot on the bridge. The wood creaked softly, but it was steady, safe. The lantern flickered once more, brighter than before, and Ethan began to cross. Halfway across the bridge, he stopped, not because he was afraid, but because he felt something, a thought, a feeling, something deep and quiet inside him. It said, "Not everything you follow needs to be understood." Ethan didn't know where the thought came from, but it felt true, so he didn't question it. He simply accepted it and continued walking. When he reached the other side of the bridge, the lantern rose slightly higher, as if it was pleased. The mist began to thin, and beyond it, a new place slowly revealed itself. But what Ethan was about to discover was something far beyond a simple light in the dark, something that would change not just his journey, but the way he understood silence, dreams, and even himself. The lantern moved forward once again, and Ethan followed, calm, quiet, ready, without knowing where the path would end, but trusting it anyway. Ethan stepped off the bridge slowly, his feet touching the soft lard on the other side, as if he had entered a different world. The air felt warmer here, not in temperature, but in feeling. Behind him, the bridge faded gently into the mist, as though it no longer belonged to the place he had just entered. Ahead, the land stretched into a quiet expanse of silver grass and low, glowing hills that pulsed faintly with light, like a slow, steady heartbeat. The lantern floated forward again, steady, patient. Ethan followed without hesitation now, Something inside him had changed while crossing the bridge. The small doubts he once had were gone, replaced by a calm curiosity and a quiet sense of trust. As he walked, he began to notice shapes forming in the distance. At first, they looked like shadows, then like buildings. And slowly, as he came closer, a hidden place revealed itself. It was a village, but not like the one he came from. This village was made of soft light and memory. The houses were small and round, built from what looked like smooth stone and glowing wood. Their windows shimmered faintly, as if something inside them was gently moving. There were no voices, no footsteps, no sound of life. And yet, the place didn't feel empty. It felt waiting. The lantern drifted into the center of the village and stopped. Ethan stood still, looking around. "Is anyone here?" he asked quietly. His voice didn't echo. It simply faded into the air, as if the world itself absorbed it gently. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a soft glow appeared in one of the houses. Ethan turned his head. The door of the small house slowly opened, without a sound. A faint, warm light spilled out onto the ground. The lantern flickered, encouraging him forward. Ethan took a deep breath and walked toward the house. As he stepped inside, he felt something he had never felt before. It was like stepping into a memory, not his own, but familiar in a strange way. The room was simple: a small wooden table, a chair, a shelf filled with objects that shimmered faintly. But what caught Ethan's attention was the wall. It wasn't solid. It moved, softly, like water made of light. And within it, images began to form. At first they were unclear, blurry shapes, faint colors, but slowly they sharpened. Ethan stepped closer, and then he saw it. A young girl sitting under a tree drawing shapes in the dirt with a small stick. She looked peaceful, focused, as if nothing else in the world mattered. The scene shifted. Now the girl was older, standing at the edge of a busy town, holding a piece of paper. Her face looked uncertain, like she wasn't sure which direction to take. The scene changed again. Now, the paper was gone. The girl stood still, surrounded by noise and movement, but her expression was quiet, empty, as if something inside her had been left behind. Ethan felt a strange heaviness in his chest. "Who is she?" he whispered. The lantern glowed softly beside him, and in that moment, he understood. This wasn't just a memory, it was a forgotten dream. Ethan stepped back slowly. "Are these dreams?" he asked. The lantern flickered once. "Yes." "Forgotten dreams?" Another flicker. "Yes." Ethan looked around the room again. The shelf, the table, the quiet air. Everything felt like it held pieces of stories that were never finished, dreams that were once bright, but slowly faded. He stepped outside. The village now looked different to him. Each house, each soft light, held a story, a dream someone once had, something they believed in, but left behind. Ethan walked slowly through the village. As he passed each house, he felt something faint: hope, fear, excitement, doubt, emotions, lingering in the air like echoes. The lantern led him to another house. This one was slightly larger. Its glow was softer, but deeper. Ethan stepped inside, and once again, the wall began to move. This time the images formed more quickly. A boy about Ethan's age, running through a field, laughing. The wind moved through his hair as he chased something unseen. The scene shifted. The boy now sat at a desk, surrounded by books. His expression was serious, focused, but tired. Then, another shift. The boy stood by a window, looking outside, just like Ethan had earlier that evening. But his eyes, they didn't hold curiosity. They held hesitation, as if he wanted to follow something, but chose not to. Ethan felt his breath slow. There was something familiar about this one. Too familiar. Is this... he began to ask. But he stopped, because deep down, he already knew. The lantern's light softened, the room grew quieter, and the image on the wall began to fade. But just before it disappeared, the boy in the reflection looked up, straight at Ethan, for a brief moment. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Ethan felt something powerful. Not sadness, not regret, but a gentle reminder. He stepped back. His heart was calm, but full. So, this place, he whispered, it keeps the dreams we forget? The lantern flickered. Yes. Ethan looked down at his hands, small, quiet, still capable of holding something more. He didn't fully understand everything, but he understood enough. Dreams didn't disappear. They waited. As he stepped outside once more, the village seemed to glow a little brighter, as if it had been seen, acknowledged, remembered. The lantern rose slightly higher into the air, and then it began to move again, leaving the village behind. Ethan followed, but this time his steps carried something new, a quiet promise, not spoken, but felt. As they walked away, Ethan turned for one last look. The village of forgotten dreams shimmered softly in the distance, peaceful, patient, waiting. Ahead, the path grew narrower. The mist returned, but it was lighter now, thinner, almost transparent. And far ahead, a new light appeared, not golden like the lantern, not soft like the village, but something else, something deeper, calmer, almost like the nade of a journey, or perhaps the beginning of understanding. The lantern slowed, as if giving Ethan time to breathe, time to feel, time to simply be. And as he walked forward, a quiet thought formed inside him. Maybe dreams are not meant to be chased. Maybe they are meant to be carried, gently, patiently, until the right moment comes. Ethan didn't question the thought. He simply let it stay, like a soft song in the background of his mind. The light ahead grew closer. The air became still, and the world around him grew quieter than ever before. What waited beyond that final light was not something to find, but something to understand. What the light was always meant to show. The path grew quieter with every step Ethan took, not empty, not silent in a lonely way, but full of a deep, gentle stillness that wrapped around him like a soft blanket. The mist that once surrounded him now faded into thin strands, drifting lazily across the Allard, as if it, too, was growing tired, ready to rest. Ahead, the new light waited. It did not flicker like the lantern. It did not move. It simply existed, calm, steady, certain. Ethan slowed his chutzpah without even realizing it. There was no fear inside him, only a quiet awareness, as if he was approaching something important, not because it was grand or powerful, but because it was true. The lantern hovered beside him for a moment, then gently moved ahead, guiding him toward the light one final time. As Ethan came closer, he began to see where the light came from. It was not a lantern, not a fire, not even a star. It was a tree. A single tree stood in the middle of an open space, its branches stretching wide into the night sky. Its leaves glowed softly, each one carrying a faint shimmer, like tiny pieces of dawn resting in the dark. The trunk was strong, yet smooth, as if it had been shaped by time itself. and at its base, the light was strongest. Ethan stepped closer, his breathing slow and steady. The moment he entered the space beneath the tree, something changed. The air felt complete. Not warmer, not brighter, just complete. As if nothing was missing. The lantern floated forward, and for the first time since the journey began, it stopped, not to wait, but to end. Its golden light flickered once, softly, almost like a quiet goodbye. Then, gently, slowly, the flame inside it faded, the lantern dimmed, and disappeared into the air, leaving behind only a faint glow that drifted upward and vanished among the branches of the tree. Ethan stood still. He didn't feel surprised. He didn't feel lost. He simply understood. The lantern had never been something to follow forever. It was only meant to guide him until he could stand on his own. Ethan looked up at the tree. The glowing leaves moved gently, though there was no wind. And then, one leaf loosened from its branch. It fell slowly, quietly, drifting through the air like a feather. Ethan watched it descend until it landed softly in the palm of his hand. It was warm, not hot, not cold, but perfectly warm, as if it belonged there. The moment the leaf touched his skin, the world shifted. Ethan was no longer standing beneath the tree. He was somewhere else, a quiet place, familiar. He stood once again in his room. The same small candle flickered beside his bed. The same window stood slightly open. The night outside was calm, just as it had been before he left. For a moment, Ethan wondered. Had he returned? Had it all been a dream? He looked down at his hand. The glowing leaf was still there, soft, real, present, and as he watched it, the light began to change, not fading, not disappearing, but transforming. The glow of the leaf spread gently through his hand, moving like a soft current flowing upward into his chest. It didn't hurt, it didn't overwhelm him, it simply settled, like something finding its place. Ethan closed his eyes, and in that moment, he saw something, not with his eyes, but within. He saw the village of forgotten dreams, still glowing softly in the distance. He saw the bridge, calm and steady. He saw the path through the mist, and he saw himself, walking, not chasing, not rushing, just walking, gently, carrying something invisible, but real. When Ethan opened his eyes, the leaf was gone, but the warmth remained. He sat down slowly on his bed. The room was quiet. The world was the same, and yet everything felt different. Ethan looked toward the window. The night stretched peacefully beyond it. No glowing lantern, no distant light, just darkness, soft and calm. But this time, the darkness didn't feel empty. It felt full. A small, gentle smile formed on Ethan's face. He didn't need to follow anything anymore. He didn't need to search, because now he understood. Dreams were not something far away, not something waiting beyond hills or hidden in distant places. They were quiet. They were patient. They lived inside, waiting to be noticed, not chased. Ethan lay down on his bed, pulling the soft blanket over himself. His breathing slowed. The candle beside him flickered gently, its light steady and calm. And just before he drifted into sleep, a final thought passed softly through his mind. The light was never leading me away. It was leading me back to myself. Outside, the night remained still. The hills rested. The trees whispered quietly. And somewhere, far beyond what could be seen, a soft golden glow shimmered once, then faded, like a story gently coming to an end. Ethan slept peacefully, and for the first time, he didn't dream of chasing anything. He simply rested, carrying the light within him. The end? A quiet reminder. Sometimes the path we follow is not meant to take us somewhere new, but to help us see what has always been there.